Good morning, peeps. Hope that you are all well. Today we're going to continue with our Unit 5, Light and Sound, and we're going to be talking about the human voice today. In order to do that effectively, we should know some vocabulary. The word diaphragm. Diaphragm is a sheet of muscle, and this muscle separates your lungs from the lower part of your torso, and it allows air to be pulled into your lungs. It's above your belly button and below your ribs, right below your ribs. You have a larynx. It's a hollow organ in the throat between your nose and your lungs that contains the vocal cords or voice box. Trachea. A trachea is a long tube through which air travels to and from the lungs when breathing. So trachea, you also call it a windpipe. Trachea is where your air goes back and forth, not food, opposed to food. Variations. Variation is a change in the amount, a form, or level of something. Vocal cords are thin, folded tissues located in the larynx, which is your voice box, that vibrate when air is exhaled. And your voice box is the larynx. So you'll hear all of those. So what do we know so far? Well, we've learned a lot about light and sound. We learned a lot about light at the beginning of the unit. We've continued with sound in the latter part of the unit. But I want you to do a little bit of an exploration with your own voice before we get started on today's lesson. So very gently, if you would put 4 fingers very gently on the front of your throat. Don't push, just very gently on the front. And I'd like you to either hum or talk to somebody. Say, good morning, how are you? Just a normal tone of voice, or you can hum a little bit. And what do those vibrations feel like? Can you feel vibrations on the inside of your body and on the outside? Can you think about any other objects that make vibrations that we can hear? I automatically think of a decent speaker. Not only can you hear that, but sometimes you can even feel it. All right, now make a really soft sound. And then make a really loud sound. Soft sound. Loud sound. Does your throat feel different when you make those 2 different kinds of sounds? That's a difference in intensity. Which kind of sound, soft sound or loud sound, has the most intensity? You can feel a larger, bigger vibration in your hand and in your throat. Now make a high-pitched sound and a low-pitched sound. So high-pitched sound would be way up here. A low-pitched sound would be way down here. Does your throat feel different when you make those 2 different kinds of sound? That would be frequency, remember? High-pitched sounds have high frequency, which means there are more of those waves. The top peak of every wave is closer together. You get more of them, and the low-pitched sound there are fewer peaks of waves. So if you could not speak, how else would you be able to communicate? People who cannot use their voice boxes are mute. You know about a mute button. You don't hear it. And a mute person is someone whose voice box, for whatever reason, is not producing a voice. They have the ability to communicate with other people. They can use written word, they can use sign language, and right now there's lots of technology that helps people who cannot speak to communicate effectively. Let's go ahead and continue with our story. Many weeks passed before Samuel, Jack, Amy, and Ethan were able to spend some time together again. After a long, hot summer, school had reopened, and the children were also involved in after-school sports. During that time, Samuel had undergone eye surgery to remove cataracts from his eyes, and Jack now had to wear his hearing aid all the time. Cataract is a clouding of the lens of the eye, which makes it so that the person cannot see clearly. Those lenses can be removed and replaced, which is an amazing, life-changing surgery for many people. The outside world had changed too. Fall had arrived. Green leaves had been replaced by a montage of copper, red, yellow, brown leaves. Gone was the warm morning air, and in its place was a chilly morning breeze. There were many mornings when frost lay on the ground. Everyone was looking forward to Thanksgiving as a joyful holiday to spend with family and friends. I don't know if we'll get a chance to spend it with as many family and friends this year. We hope. It was a Saturday morning, and Jack was sitting in Samuel's kitchen. The two men were playing their weekly game of chess. They had first played chess together when they were in 3rd grade. They had not been playing for long when Amy and Ethan arrived and scampered eagerly into the kitchen, closely pursued by Alfie. They had come to visit their grandfather, and Amy had some exciting news to share with him. Slow down, advised Samuel. You'll go crashing into the wall if you aren't careful, he warned. And as Samuel spoke, Alfie wagged his tail and promptly sat down on Ethan's feet. Hello, Granddad, said Amy cheerfully. How are you? I'm very well, replied Samuel cheerily. What have you troublemakers been up to? Oh, it's almost Thanksgiving, said Ethan excitedly. We're going to sing in a concert at school. You are you? Said Jack. Well, I hope we're invited to hear you sing. Oh, yes, you are, chimed in Amy. We brought you tickets, see? And she held up 2 tickets. It's next Wednesday, and you have front row seats. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade classes are going to sing traditional songs from around the world. My class is singing an Irish lullaby, Amy explained. My class is going to sing a French song called Frère Jacques, said Ethan. Sounds very interesting, said Jack. And he contemplated his next move on the chessboard. You know, each human voice is quite unique. Each voice has its own tone. That's the reason why you can recognize a person by his or her own voice, exclaimed Jack. Our voices are as unique as we are, Samuel agreed. Only I have my voice. Precisely, agreed Jack. However, although human voices differ from one another, they are all produced in the same way. They are? Said Ethan. Indeed they are, Jack continued, having finally decided to move one of his bishops. If you could see inside your body, you would discover that inside your throat, at the top of your windpipe or trachea, is your voice box. The voice box is also known as the larynx. Within your larynx are 2 bands of muscle called vocal cords. These vocal cords enable humans to make a wide range of sounds. Neat, said Ethan. But how is the sound made? Well, it's not as complicated as you might think, exclaimed Jack. When you breathe in, your vocal cords relax so that the air can reach your lungs. When you breathe out, a muscle called the diaphragm moves upward to force air out of your body. When you speak, air leaves your body too. Your lungs and diaphragm force air through the opening in your throat past the vocal cords. This movement of air causes the vocal cords to vibrate, so sound is produced. As your vocal cords tighten and relax, different sounds are produced. Cool. Check, announced Samuel. What? Yelled Jack. Don't tell me you're going to beat me again, Samuel Van Lumen. Jack stared furiously at the checkboard and tried to find out a way out of his predicament. Come on, Alfie, said Jack. Let's go play ball. To the children, he said, I wasn't finished telling you about the power of the human voice. I'm coming too, Amy announced. And with that, the two children and Alfie ran out into Samuel's backyard. The children played with Alfie for quite a while. Then they stayed for lunch, and Samuel and Jack finally said it was time for them to go home. "See you on Wednesday at the concert," said Ethan. "You will indeed," said Samuel. "I'll continue my lesson then," threatened Jack. Before they knew it, Wednesday had arrived. It was a cool day, and rain had been forecast. Samuel and Jack arrived early and took their seats in front of the school auditorium. 30 minutes later, the auditorium was full, and parents waited anxiously to see their children perform. Samuel's daughter, Amy, and her husband, John, had also arrived and were eager to hear Amy. Wait a minute. Samuel's daughter, Anna, and her husband, John, had also arrived and were eager to hear Amy and Ethan sing. First up was Ethan's class singing Frère Jacques, a traditional French song. Behind them was a large screen with an image of the Eiffel Tower displayed on it. The children sang the song perfectly. Samuel and Jack smiled proudly. "I can hear Ethan's voice distinctly," said Jack. Then it was Amy's class's turn. They sang an Irish lullaby beautifully. Samuel nodded at Jack and said, "I can hear Amy's voice too, nice and strong." When the concert was over, the family walked together to the local cafe for hot chocolate. They took their seats, and minutes later they were all sipping mugs of hot chocolate piled high with marshmallows. As they talked about the show, Jack complimented the children on their singing. "My teacher says I have perfect pitch," said Amy proudly. "What's that?" Ethan asked, looking puzzled. Amy was happy to explain. "When my chorus teacher is ready for my class to sing, she likes to start us on the note of middle C. Instead of her playing it on the piano, I just sing it." "Wow," said Jack. "Did I tell you that the pitch of your voice is determined by the size of your larynx and voice cords?" "No, you didn't," chimed in Ethan, with marshmallows stuck on his top lip. "That's why a young child's voice is generally higher in pitch than an adult's," exclaimed Jack. "The larger your larynx and voice cords, the louder and lower your voice is. The pitch of your voice is also determined by the tension of the surrounding muscles. Trained singers learn how to control these muscles to produce variations in pitch and intensity." "Oh, so that's what it means to train your voice," said Amy. "And I bet men usually have longer vocal cords than women, and that's why their voices are deeper." "You've got it," said Jack. "You and Granddad are so smart," said Ethan. "I'm much smarter than he is," joked Jack. "Well," laughed Samuel, "actions speak louder than words." Jack's eyebrows raised as Samuel made the motions of struggling with the fishing pole. "You're both very clever," Amy laughed. "I'm so glad we have been able to spend so much time with both of you." "Me too," shouted Ethan. The next day was Thanksgiving. Samuel, Jack, and an array or group of family members and friends gathered in Samuel's home for dinner. They ate and laughed and enjoyed each other's company. They gave thanks for each other and the bonds that Samuel and Jack had nurtured for so many years. So what do you think about how your body produces your voice? Interesting, isn't it? What body parts work together to produce your voice? You've got lungs, diaphragm, vocal cords, trachea, and larynx or voice box. And what is the name of the muscle below the lungs that also helps to produce your voice by allowing air to move in and out of your body? The diaphragm. That's right. It really separates your intestines from the upper chest where your lungs and heart is. How are variations created in voices? Well, larger larynxes and voice boxes produce lower sounds. Trained singers can learn to produce variations. The way the air passes out of the body affects the vibration and therefore the voice also. What can you do to make your voice have a high pitch to it? How can your voice have a lower pitch to it? Well, you tighten and relax your vocal cords, and you change your breath using your diaphragm. That will allow you to change the pitch of your voice. What are some sources of sound that we heard in this read aloud? Well, of course, the people talking, Alfie barking, music playing, the children's classes singing. Have you ever been to a concert? Have you ever been in one? Just like the one that Amy and Ethan went to. Cool. We will continue tomorrow. Have a good day.